Hello. I have a question for you. What if life was much less about being productive and more about enjoying each moment with vigor and enthusiasm, or even wonder? Today, tonight, depending on where you're watching from your part of the world, we welcome you to inspire, innovate, ignite conversations that count. You know, when you feel overwhelmed, there's a tendency to resort back to old familiar habits that soothe or numb out those excessive thoughts. Chocolate and Netflix, anyone? Resorting to habitual ways actually puts you back to sleep. Energy lessens, you become bored, listless, feeling disempowered, unmotivated, or just plain tired. You slip back into slumber. And in this panel discussion, we explore ways to regain consciousness, rediscover true pleasure, and allow radiant energy to flow through into all directions of your life. So in this discussion, we have the wonderful Heidi Henyon, Lei Mohr, Nicole Hoist, and Julie Delucca-Collin joining us. And I'm super excited. And I'd love for each one of you that are here to introduce yourselves, because I know you're doing wonderful work in the world. And so grateful to have you here and all of you that are joining us. So Heidi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me here, Jennifer. And I'm looking forward to this panel a great deal. So my favorite thing in the world is helping people to become their own best friends. We have all these voices and things that go on in our head that are not always very nice, and we don't necessarily take care of ourselves first and things of that sort. And my big thing is we live with ourselves 24/7 from the time of conception till our last breath in this body. Why not be our own best friend? So I will leave it at that. People can check out my credentials on my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heidi. And Lei, tell us about you.
I like to think of myself as a guide for people who have had some trauma and are working through it, and to help them find and live their dream life. I have been all over the world. I have been on lots of podcasts, including one from Jennifer. And my message to the world is that we are here to be able to live life fully. And if we are not living life fully, we can make our way to that so that we can live our very best lives. And my information is also on my website, which I'm sure they will put up at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And Julie.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I love this panel because every time, Lei, you're new to me. I'm so excited to get to hear a little bit more about you as well as Nicole, but I'm Julie Delucca-Collin, and I am the host of the Casa de Confidence podcast and also Go Confidently Services. And for me, my mission is to help women who are struggling to be confident in their life and business to really be able to connect with the habits that help them go confidently in the direction of their dreams. I am very passionate about helping others get to what they envision for themselves, for their life, for their dreams. And sometimes we spend a lot of time beating ourselves up over the sabotaging behaviors that are pre-programmed in our brain. So I love to explore specifically how can individuals leverage the tools to step into the person that they are meant to be, and to be able to really create a ripple effect and live in their purpose. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to be here as well and get to know our fellow panelists a little more. And again, Heidi, I've been having so much fun being in panels with you. So fun.
So great. Thank you, Julie. I'm so glad you're here too. And Nicole, what are you up to?
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too. I'm an intuitive life purpose coach, I say. What I've learned through my journey is, that I think we all have something that we're excited about in our soul that's unique to us. And it's funny, I think we all do the same thing, just in different ways, really, right? So it's about getting to the essence of who you are. And part of that is that unlearning who you were taught to be and overcoming those very normal human fears and mindset blocks that hold us back that we've usually accumulated. And then I like to help people reconnect to their intuition as a source for direction and clarity on their path, and then get clear on a soul aligned plan to live the life they really want, not the one that they think is possible, but something maybe bigger than they think is possible or more aligned than they think is possible. And that ultimately that helps them to live with more fulfillment and freedom and fun every day, and a sense of adventure, and trusting that the law of attraction, I believe, is real, and that it can bring you magical moments like I've experienced that were beyond my childhood dreams. And so I try to share with them, a little bit about my journey and how, I think every time you take that leap of faith, the universe meets you halfway and brings all the right circumstances and people you need for rewarding that brave moment. And so, my business is Follow Your Soul Path, and I do a mix of coaching, and I also do tarot readings. So excited to be here.
Excited that we're all here. And like you say, the universe brings us together. And I always get super excited about when we come together and the energy that really becomes a synergy in essence. And this is something that I really love to do. I love bringing spiritual change makers, thought leaders, and visionary entrepreneurs together who speak the same language, who are doing the same thing, and becoming more and more self-expressed and being able to transmit that love, wisdom, and joy, but also to sustain ourselves in the process. So I like to talk about empowering practices that sustain our well-being and our momentum so that we can lead others in a meaningful way. So I do that through the Wake Up and Change the World Global Summit a few times a year, and also the Awaken and Ascend podcast. So today we're talking about reawakening the wonder of life. And this is something that really excites me because there's so many possibilities and shapes and forms that our life can take and what we can experience during our time here on Earth. And a lot of it time, though, we become dispirited. I've seen that happen over my 20 years profession and working with people that were really struggling and challenged by the resources that were less available to them, or that, they were in situations where they felt really disempowered and didn't know really how to share their gifts or express themselves in their best version of themselves. And so even with all of the world events that have been going on and the different ways that we've created disorder and disease on this planet, there's still a lot of joy and love and support and enthusiasm for what we can still get to experience in this lifetime. And all of that can get a little overwhelming. And so I'm curious, everyone, what is it that makes us feel overwhelmed? Like, what's really the source of that overwhelm, do you think? What comes up for you? How do you notice it in your own life? And let's just talk about and feel into what the overwhelm is and really touch into that, lean into that, so we can explore it and then find ways to overcome it. So Heidi, what do you have to say about overwhelm?
Thanks. That's such a great question. And when you sent out the questions, I was looking at it, and I think overwhelm comes when I get so busy on the outside world, building the business, doing the marketing, all those kinds of things, that I forget why I'm in business. I know that's a big one for me. And then the other place that I go into overwhelm is when I'm doing something, and we all do this without, most of my clients, everybody, when we're just trying too hard to please the rest of the world, and we're then overtaken by the things that are going on in the rest of the world. I know that if I sit in front of the TV, if I watch the news, I know what's going on. But I heard somebody say, the other day, most of the news that's out there that we see is less than 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%. So, and there might be 10% in the world of going on of things to be concerned about, but there's 90% of really cool and wonderful things. So I know for me, especially when I start feeling a little bit of overwhelm, I step back from all of that, get back in alignment with my own values, connect with community. I think it's so important, to reach out. One of the things that I know happened to me because of COVID, At first, it was like, it was nice to have quiet time and that reflective time and the time to look. And, you know, where I live there, we're right in one of the paths of for the international airport. So the morning, all of that stopped, and nature on my farm came up even more. And it was absolutely wonderful. And then I started feeling a little bit overwhelmed because I wasn't reaching out to people. So for me, a lot of times it's that connection that I need. Am I getting enough connection so I don't feel alone and overwhelmed with so much that's going on?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really a choice of what we want to tune into, right? And to be aware of things, but how much power do we want to give to that or leak our life force energy into that? And so this is really good information to talk about and to really recognize just how small that actually is. And when that message becomes amplified, because we're hearing it over and over again, that we can kind of get a distorted view of what's real. What's real. Julie, how does overwhelm show up in your life?
You know, I think that overwhelm really shows up for me when, like Heidi, I am not noticing or I am allowing my mind to go and be my enemy. And we all have the ability to really befriend ourselves and befriend our mind and be aware. We go into these automations, we go into these just white noise of life. You know, we go to the grocery store and we're standing in line and we see the line that's very long and we're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get home. And we're sort of like in that automation, as opposed to allowing ourselves to be present. And even all of these mundane moments that we take for granted, because what ends up happening is that as we're going through life in this automation, stacking up our anxiety, our overwhelm, the emotions that are not so positive from time to time, they start to stack up. And then that creates that anxiety, that creates that overwhelm. And we don't even know where it comes from at times, right? We're just sort of doing something. And then our poor husband walks in, and we snap right away, or we get really frustrated. Yesterday, I woke up in the morning and typically I do a little meditation, sit down in my little zen tent, and I didn't do it, but I jumped right into work and I have so many different things. And I allowed, again, my mind to not be my best friend and started to just these tapes running like, oh, I got to get this done and I have to do this. And all of a sudden I sat down and I said, no, I need to sit down and need to take a breath. And as I sat here at my desk and I was meditating and I had my friend's meditation playing in the background, I found myself crying. And what would have happened had I not allowed myself to be present? Had I not allowed myself to feel just the emotions and the thoughts that were driving these emotions, whereas I had an opportunity to hold space for myself. So I think that this is a lot of what happens with many of us. Again, we revert to that flight or fight instinct that is so prevalent. And by the way, if you're feeling this overwhelm, I want to congratulate you. You're human. It's part of our DNA. It's what happens. But what is something that we can leverage are the tools, the tips, the mentoring, the experiences of others that have navigated these waters that create the overwhelm. So give yourself some grace, hold space, but again, sit still, be aware, notice what is going on, and step away from the automation that life tends to give us. So that would be a little bit of what I'd love to share.
Thank you so much, Julie. And I love how you spoke about holding space for ourselves, because when we fill up ourselves with so many other things, there is no space for us. And it can feel overwhelming, claustrophobic, and just, tight. It can feel really tight, not having that space. And so I love that we can allow ourselves to have the space and create some freedom and really free our spirit, and direct us to what brings us that aliveness, that joy, that beauty, the excitement and the wonder. Yeah, I love that. Nicole, how does overwhelm show up in your life? What does the experience even feel like? And what do you think causes it?
Well, for me, it shows up physically. So today, for example, I had a stressful, just like a payment, technical situation that I had to deal with. And I've learned my body's distress signals, I call them. I started out as a dancer. So I think I feel things like somatically first, but for a long time, I put those warning signals aside, right? Like it's, I just an old injury, I got to deal with it. I didn't see the correlation between, what I was feeling and what was happening in my body. And now I know that it's my body trying to get attention, that something's out of alignment or out of balance, or I've been putting myself aside, or maybe I'm giving out a lot of energy and I haven't replenished it. So for me, what helps me is I'm very much a doer. I'm a Leo. I very future minded. It's always been a challenge for me to be present. And recently, I did this meditation, and it said that the right side of your body is about the future and the left is about the past. And I'd never heard that before, but all of my physical issues are on my right side. So I was like, So I just kind of start to get curious and think about how I can balance it. And what I always tell my clients is sometimes what I've learned is the indirect thing, it might be what helps you, right? So like your body's hurting, me going and listening to a sound bath, which isn't physical at all, right? I'm just sitting and listening, has often helped my pain a lot more than, if I go try to fix it, as I've been a Pilates instructor for 20 years, because if it's emotional, if it's about, I'm triggered by all this stuff on my plate is usually what it is for me, and me trying to do too many things at once and multitasking and then letting my mind get overwhelmed. So I do a combination of, I might try to just take some time out and do yin yoga or listen to something relaxing, put on classical music that has no words. And then like today, when I felt that way, I was like, let me ask myself where this is coming from. And where it usually comes from me is like growing up, I kind of felt this, like if I didn't do it right the first time, or if I didn't get everything perfect, and then I overthink things ahead. So it's not even real half the time, right? It's like this anticipated fear of what if this all falls apart, doing too many things instead of sticking to my plan. So lately I've been a lot more about trying to make structure, which is not as natural to me as, I'm intuitive. So I'm used to going with the flow. So to put it in a structure is more challenging to me. But I think that when you start to listen to your warning signs and you start to kind of inventory them, and then you check in with what you're making that mean to you, then I think you can get a little more control over them and apply whatever technique works for you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I try to help people find. So
awesome. And I love that you talk about letting your mind go to places, because then it gives us the idea and the clue that we have some control over our thoughts and our beliefs and the way that we're moving our bodies and what we let into our lives and what we invite in, and how to support ourselves in that, and to be gentle with ourselves and bring up that awareness. Lei, what do you think is the source of overwhelm? How does it show up in your life?
Well, for me, overwhelm comes when I feel like too much is expected of me and I don't have support. First and foremost, all of my life, I've felt like I was not supported. And so when I start feeling not supported, then the overwhelm will start coming up for me. And that also comes in for something that is really common with so many of us, the inability to say no. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. No, I can't do that. I can't do everything. And I shouldn't be expected to do everything. We are super women, but we are not superwoman. And we need to understand that we can build boundaries, that we can say, sorry, I have my plate full already and I don't really need to have I don't have any space to put something else on there. And it might be something that's really important to us and we might really want to do it. But we, like others have said, have choices to make in our lives. And some of these choices are about what to let in, what to let out, what to not let in, and what can we handle? What do we want to handle? and what is in our best interest and the best interest of our mission to handle. And so that's how I do it. And when I feel the overwhelm, I will step back and breathe and listen to music just like everybody else, or take, if it's the right time of year, take a nice warm bath with, say, Epsom salt or pink Himalayan salt, something like that. And just try and okay, it's all right. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Self-soothing and bringing in the elements like the water and the Epsom salts to detoxify. That's so beautiful. It really clears and purifies our energy. And I can certainly relate to packing in a lot. I have a tendency to do that. I remember David Allen's quote about you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And I resisted that, I was like, I can do anything and I can do everything. And you know what I found? I could, but then I end up really feeling overwhelmed or have adrenal fatigue. And then I'm flat on the bed and that's it. Like I can't move, literally. And so that wasn't so good. That wasn't really being productive. And so it's knowing what to say yes to. And as we talked about, living in alignment with your values and your mission and what's going to best support that, and making choices that are most life supportive for us, and being able to reset every now and then. And if you want to play along with me, actually, I have a very easy, quick reset exercise. It actually takes longer to explain than actually do it. And it's just going to have us put our hand over our head. It doesn't matter which one you start with. And then we can breathe in and out for about 10 seconds here. And if you want, you can add on an affirmation to yourself, or you can just simply breathe and be just allowing that breath in and out. And then switching your hand. So then you have the opposite hand over your head now. And again, just breathing for 10 seconds, adding a mantra or an affirmation if you want, or counting your breath, even having your eyes closed. And what that does, it's a reset, and it rebalances the right and left sides of your brain. So it's a little brain gym exercise that only takes 20 seconds. And often I hear that people find it very settling, that it's a little calming, and that it's amazing what can happen in just a few seconds, that we can literally do that. Or even, when I worked in an extremely busy environment, people's only breaks were going to the washroom, and having that relief and being able to close the door behind you for a minute and having that quiet. For me, I find that downtime is essential. Like I need to decompress by going out in nature, shifting my focus, having the natural light come in, kind of soothe my senses, restore my senses, because I find there's so much stimulation and bombardment that it can become overwhelming. And so with this little reset, I'm curious how that felt. And I'm also curious what helps you to feel most alive, most energized, not in an overwhelming way, but like in bringing in that enthusiasm and that inspiration and that go attitude that's not based on tension. I find for me, I can tend to things with tenderness or tend to things with tension, and it brings a very different energy. So we can be busy, but it can also be fulfilling if we bring the right kind of energy to it. So I'm curious first how that reset felt for you, if you felt anything at all, any difference, and what it is that makes you feel alive and joyful, and how to experience life with that kind of energy. So Nicole, would you like to take us there?
Yeah. Well, no, thank you for that. That helped me calm my nervous system today. I think I was tell a story about my dad ran every red light and stop sign on the way to the hospital when I was born. So I say I was born in a hurry, and funny enough, I'm from California, where you would think I'd be laid back, but I live in Brooklyn, where I feel more comfortable because I think it matches my energy. So I think we tend to be, funny you said tension, I wrote it down, tenderness or tension, I think you said. So I tend to be more the tension type, funny enough. But I see how much we need the tenderness, because I teach a stretching class every week, and especially in New York, like we need the balance of whatever our energy is naturally, right? I think we beat ourselves up for the one we don't have. But what makes me like what helps me calm that, and when I feel the most in the flow and alive for me is when I'm creating something or planning, producing. I used to produce shows, I still do. And there's something about the creative process that puts me right in that flow state, which to me is the same as connecting to your intuition, right? Or connecting to a higher source or the universe. Because I think creative people get that inspiration from somewhere. I think it's basically channeled, and I think that's when we're connected to our soul, and we don't have tension when we're connected to our soul, our mind, and our environment is usually what brings the tension. And we live, I think, in an unnatural environment. Like you said, like I'm here surrounded by concrete. I went for a little walk before this just to walk down to the water and see something natural. And that brought me right back to that calm, less tense feeling. But for me to feel excited, I have to feel like there's possibility. And maybe that's what producing and creating represents to me, is that it's something in my imagination that's as of yet untangible and unformed, but it's a possibility. And I see that same thing with the coaching. And I think we all have the same mission of helping people live like bigger, more fulfilling lives. And so it's like when you have that spark of an idea, that part's always really exciting to me, because you don't know where it's going to lead yet, but you know it's leading somewhere good because it feels good. And that's how I teach people to trust their intuition. Is we're not taught to follow what feels good, right? We're taught to follow like what makes sense, and I think that creates that tension. So I think for me, when I feel alive is when I feel excited about something, and when I'm constantly challenging myself or looking for something I haven't done before, or maybe pushing myself to do something that is a little scary, but opens doors for me, is I think when I feel the most alive.
Yes. And I can even hear it in your voice and your energy, even when you're talking about it. And it's just, so satisfying. Heidi, what are your thoughts?
I love that exercise. I actually teach that to my clients also, because it's a real quick one. I work with people like Leah with trauma, a lot of trauma, and having had pretty severe trauma in their lives. And I think I pronounced your name wrong. I'm sorry. And that, if they can just separate from where they are, especially if they're starting to feel that trauma trance coming on, that overwhelm, that sort of thing, if they can do that and they can just find a moment to go, like you said, even in the bathroom stall, if that's it, and quickly just do this, it really reconnects to the body. So when you did that, I was like, oh, lovely, I could use that right now. And what brings me so much happiness, I love, I have to ditto what Nicole was saying. There's nothing more wonderful than that creative process that comes over. I love to teach, and when I'm creating a new retreat or even a master class for a little while, and you get to create it and make it happen, and then you get to deliver it, that's so much fun. And then the other thing that brings me a great deal of joy is I'm very fortunate. I inherited my parents' farm a couple years ago outside of Washington, D.C., and turned it into a retreat center. I love nothing more than having people coming out to my place. I get to cook for them. They get to learn really good things. They get to hang out in nature. I get to hang out in nature. I'm so very fortunate. Both my homes, one is deep, deep in the forest. That's where I am now. And my other one is wide open fields from a farm. So that also creates a lot of flow and joy, being able to share those things with people and really nurture people. I love to do that. That's I've had the dream of a retreat center for 35 years, and I tell everybody, it's just, I get to have a big slumber party and feed people and have fun. And learn
Amazing.
Stuff too. Love it.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm sure we're all waiting for that invitation, Heidi, to join you on this retreat.
Welcome anytime.
Oh, thank you. Julie, what do you have to share?
Well, I also love these little 10-minute intervals of reconnecting to our body and our breath, because that's the present moment that I was speaking about earlier. So thank you for doing that. I needed it as well, right? Coming in, and I came in a little earlier, or late rather, and I'm like, oh, my dog is sick. So really, these are the moments that we go from thing to thing. for me to reconnect, and by the way, Nicole, I used to live in New York City and I don't anymore. I live in Connecticut. So as you were speaking about the city, I used to live a block from the water, both when I lived in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and I used to walk down to the water, and that was my reconnection and really just focusing. Now that I live in the suburbs in Connecticut, I still go outside. I have my plants, which I never thought I would be a plant person, but I am because I rewrote my story. I love watching the birds come to the bird feeder. I love watching my dogs just explore in the grass. And tonight, it's a full moon, I believe, and I was sitting outside for a little bit, and I was hoping that I could see the moon rising, which I could not because we're in the valley. But these are the moments that I love to reconnect. In the mornings as well, when I open I don't have verticals because I hate these verticals. I just have curtains, and I open the curtain in the morning. My bedroom window faces east, and typically I like to open it as the sun is rising and feel those first rays in my face. Those are the moments that help me reconnect, that help me connect to not only the moment, but myself, my gratitude, my breath. And again, the mundane moments are the ones that help me really stay focused. And that's also when I'm working with individuals, with women, we don't have to go to the spa for self-care. We don't have to do something elaborate. Yes, by the way, Heidi, I love retreats. I need to get to your retreat place. And yes, we can do that. But find the pockets of time within what's around you. If you are in a home, I am sure you're surrounded by things that have meaningful things and memories, or gifts from people that you love that can help you also center yourself. And I feel that that's very, very important for all of us to have, is to, no matter where we are, bloom there. Look, what is it that can help you anchor yourself and reconnect? So yeah, that's my answer.
Reconnection and regaining consciousness and that soul revival, and just noticing how it feels to be out with the moon and the sun and the meadows and all of nature that is alive. There's so much aliveness around us even that we can touch and tap into. Lei, I would love to hear what you have to share.
Well, I live on a very natural area. I'm surrounded by trees and plants. And I actually came back here. I was born on the islands, and I came back so that I could grow fresh food, my own fresh food, completely organic as I wanted it. And that brings me a lot of joy inside. But there's also, when I'm helping my people, when I'm guiding my people, I'm not doing it alone. I'm a channel, and the energy that comes through me as a channel is extremely powerful. And it's something that everybody is a channel, sort of, but some of us are more practiced at it or more aware of it. And for me, the energy that comes through and the perfect words that come to them, not through me, because I don't say those things, but they come to my people, and it feels to them like exactly what they need to hear at that time. And then to watch them have their breakthroughs, that to me, it's the highlight of my life. And that's what brings me the greatest joy in the world.
Oh, that is so beautiful. So beautiful. I love that. And I relate to it too, because seeing the sparkle come back into people's eyes gets me excited. And also when people are living their passion, it just brings me so much joy and that camaraderie. The way I see passion, when you break up the word, it's pass I on. And that I is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. So when people are really living their passion and there's that soul alignment, then I feel that togetherness, that connection, that global universal feeling of joyfulness and curiosity. and exploring life. These are the things that I like to engage in. I love to explore and discover new things and try new things and experience different cultures and accents and different foods and just everything that is available to us. You know, it's so amazing what can present for us. And if we take up the offer, you know, there's offerings from nature, from each other, from life that are always available to us. And it's up to us whether we're going to pay any attention to that or take it up on the offer and spend some time with that and explore it and see what it feels like to have that kind of experience. And yeah, passion is really important to me, and the way that people stand up for what they believe in. You know, that's really exciting too. And that creates a feeling of aliveness because you see people wake up. And I find that when people are bored, that they're not really living their full potential. They've kind of become dormant. There's aspects of their life or themselves that have become dormant or stagnant that isn't feeling alive and wonderful and wanting to really do anything. You know, it's like this tired, listless, heavy kind of feeling, whereas that aliveness feels light and energized and enthusiastic and inspired and creative. And sometimes we go for refuge. We take refuge to find that stillness and feel alive, even in just our beingness, you know? And so there's so many different paths we can take in this lifetime, and we can be curious about that. But I want to address this issue of boredom and not living our full potential and not experiencing life in this wonderful kind of way. What can you offer and speak into that, Lei? What about the people who don't feel all this joy and passion and creativity right now, that are kind of feeling bored and listless? I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. Would you offer them? What can you say to them to spark their interest again, to reawaken that wonder?
First of all, I think we've all been there. I know I have been there. In fact, I spent a very, very long time there. And to me, to find what was the cause of that, which is a lot of deep inner work, and then find out why it's there. What is it? Is it serving you in some way? And work through that to be able to heal that so that you then can move on. And part of that, and this is something that I've learned, and I try to pass it on to my people, is to see those experiences that cause this boredom, that cause this whatever feeling it is, because it's not really boredom. It's more like a fear of moving on or a fear of something. To see those experiences of the past in love really, really helps to be able to make inroads into living your best life. And that's been critical for me to see. For instance, I had a very rough childhood with an abusive mother, and through an incident that I talk about in my book, There Was No Fear, I saw her as doing what she did because she made a choice, I made a choice, we both made a choice for her to do that so I could have the foundation I needed to have so that I could help the people that I do. And in that, I could see how much she loved me to be able to do that. And I am able to pass on that love now to all of the people I work with.
I am so glad that you do, Lei. Thank you for sharing that. Julie, what do you think about boredom? What do you think that's really about, and how would we overcome it?
You know, boredom is definitely something that from a very early age, I have a memory sitting in the back seat of, I'm going to date myself, of an old Volkswagen Beetle my uncle used to drive. And I was sitting packed in the back seat. And I remember, I don't even know where we were going. And I was the youngest. My cousins were 4 and 6 years older than I was. And I must have been 8, maybe. And I remember thinking, I'm bored. And I said that out loud. And I was told, you should not be bored. And my uncle said, put your hands together. And now do this where you twirl your thumbs. And a lot of times, by the way, talk about things moving with you through childhood into adulthood. There's a lot of times that I'll sit down, I'm like, okay, what am I doing now? And I immediately go and I twiddle my thumbs. And it's always a sign to me that my mind is idle. And, the messages that we receive. So I connect boredom with not being useful, not being helpful, not being connected to maybe something that you're supposed to be doing, but says who, right? And now, every time I find myself doing this, I think, ooh, what can I do today? Is this just a moment to sit still and be okay with sitting still? Because sometimes we have to give ourselves permission. And it's not about being bored, but it's about being open to like, ooh, what is the possibility of me doing this? And it's a gift. We live in a world that tells us that we should be busy with this and we should be doing that, and we should ourselves so much. But I'm beginning to reframe this in the last few years with what can I do to not be bored, but really be present and equate that and forget a little bit of those old tapes that are ingrained in me from somebody else, not even my own. I made them my own, but and that's a lot of what happens to many of us. We make these messages that belong to somebody else, those false beliefs. So I'm reframing that a lot for myself. And I want to challenge others to, again, not try to fill your time with this or fill your time with, what can I get into the computer, or I'm going to read. There's nothing wrong with being still and being present.
Very interesting perspective. Thank you so much for sharing that, Julie. Nicole, what do you have to say about boredom?
I'm laughing because the whole time you're talking about being okay with being still, my cat is pacing back and forth right now, trying to get my attention because she's bored. And the first thought that I heard, and they always say like whatever happens during your reading is part of the reading. So I know that's part of the intuition here. But my first thought when I heard bored is discontent, and I grew up in a very small town. Wizard of Oz was like my first eye-opening moment where, I started out with dance and music and theater. And to me, that was colorful and exciting. And I was in this town that was boring, and I think I felt that at a young age. And I remember being stuck at a table waiting for my mom to come home. And, all I had to entertain me was myself. Right. And I think that's where my creativity came from, was just the feeling of I'm bored and how do I keep myself entertained, whether it was like writing stories or singing along to the radio or planning these shows in my head that, I didn't realize I was basically kind of attracting my future at that point. Right. But I think it's different for everyone, right? I've definitely been in jobs where I felt like, what am I doing here? And I'm so bored that I'm pushing this paperwork, and I have this creative side to me that's not being fulfilled. So sometimes I think the boredom can be a sign of discontent, and that we're, feeling off our path, or we know like there's more potential we could be living. But I also totally feel what you were saying about it could just be a restlessness, and that it's okay in that moment to choose to just be okay with where you're at and sort of accepting the moment, which is something I know I struggle with, being that future-minded person. So to me, I guess, it's another signal, right? It's a signal that maybe there's something missing in your life that your soul knows that you can do that might be more satisfying to you, right? Because I know when I was in those moments at my job, it was everything. It was my body telling me, it was my soul telling me, like, you're bored for a reason, because this job is never going to let you express that creative side that you have that's important to you, that brings that joy of life to me. That part was suppressed, and I think for everyone it's different, but I think you have to know what boredom means to you, and I definitely have clients that are like me, that are more creative. And when they're stuck doing mundane things or working for other people, they're just always going to feel a little bit of resistance. And I've learned to recognize that in myself and just say, well, that's my nature, right? My nature is I don't like doing, if it was up to me, I would outsource all my chores, right? And just focus on being creative. But, it's part of life that I can just accept as it is what it is, what they say in Brooklyn right now, right?
It is what it is.
And I can learn something. I used to hate that phrase, but it's true. Some things just are where they are. And it's like we could accept them and then stay focused on the part that does make us feel good and excited and live.
Yeah, noticing what doesn't serve you, right? Too, and
yes.
practicing that discernment and making choices around that we're not stuck. We're not stuck in it. Heidi, what do you have to say about boredom?
Oh, I have to say ditto, ditto, ditto. Lee was saying and Nicole and Julie, it's amazing because I find my boredom when I go there takes on different pictures. It's not always the same. It has different colors. It has different things like that. Most of the time when my boredom shows up, it's because I'm out of alignment with myself. And I love to sit and take quiet moments. And I might say, why am I not? It also, in my life, I also had a pretty severe childhood. And as a result of that, depression can kind of sneak in underneath sometimes. And sometimes boredom for me is a sign of, oh, are you letting depression take over? And I challenge that in that the concept of depression, I think so often depression and boredom become habits. And with all habits, it's lovely, like Lei was saying, if you can find the root cause towards that, however you do that, it's a lot what I do with my clients, all of a sudden it goes away. Or when you start feeling it again, you can go, oh, what's that about? Because a lot of times for me, boredom is I'm not really doing in my life what I love to do. And so so things become more gray instead of really colorful. And when I start feeling that, I have to sit back and say, okay, what part of my life am I not filling up? And that may be the silence, like what Julia's saying, silence is a wonderful thing. And especially with this new moon and the new moon energy that's going on right now, there's a call to go silent because we're really being woken up inside. And it's in the silence that we can hear that. So it's I have to really look at it and say, okay, why am I bored? And the other time that I get bored is when I start trying to focus on things that are outside of me. And what I mean by that is I'm not doing my own creative process or my own being or working with my own clients. I'm looking outside and seeing what's wrong with the world instead of what's right. And we all fall into that. I'm 99% what's right in the world. And then, I get those moments of, man, nothing is right. And then it's like, wait a minute. Oh, we're doing that again. So I think I really have to question when the boredom happens, which part of me is bored and why? Because we are all made up of different personalities and we have different parts of us that want to express themselves. So which part is bored right now? And like when it's my little girl, it's like, okay, we'll go turn the music on, we'll dance, we'll be crazy, we'll act like the grandchild and have a great time. And I can do that for like 4 or 5 minutes. And all of a sudden I'm not bored at work anymore. Oh, I'm creating this thing, or, oh, I've got this client coming on. Let's see, what are we going to do with them today? And I can start channeling that in, but that's because my little girl was just, you've been sitting here for 2 hours, Heidi, I'm bored. So it's those habits and things that we have to look at. And are we staying in the habit? And if we are, how do we simply start changing that neurology and moving through it?
Right. Yeah, and I love that you brought up depression too, because on the spiritual plane, depression's the resistance to life, right? And we spoke earlier too about boredom being something that's holding us back as well. And so there is a similar energy that's going on there, a habitual kind of way of being. And it's really interesting that you spoke about what part of me is bored, because you're recognizing what a great insight that it's not our whole being, right? There's different parts of us having those experiences. There's parts of us that haven't had an opportunity to experience life yet, you know? And from what I was hearing, there's like this energy too of expectancy, you know, almost like we're expecting something to happen or something to be different, or that there's more to life, you know, there's more to be experienced. And it's like, so we get a little restless and we're maybe pacing like the cat, or that we're looking for something, or we're just like I'm waiting. There's an expectancy for something, you know, and you're just kind of sitting there waiting for something to happen. But we can also go out and seek it, right? And that's why I love to explore and approach life with curiosity. And it takes some courage too, and a whole lot of compassion. And so when we're in that depressive state, or in that boredom, or in that overwhelm, what can we do to reawaken the wonder of life, you know, to be open and expansive and want to explore and to experience and find what we're looking for, you know, or allow some space within us for that to be revealed to us? What can we do to reawaken the wonder of life? Lei, do you have an answer to that?
I do. I've had children. I have grandchildren, and they don't, you know, if they're stuck in the car or something, yes, they kind of lose it. But most of the time they don't, especially the younger generations now, they never lose their sense of wonder. They continue to imagine. They continue to live in a world that is now, which is a very big part of how to keep the wonder there. How can you see this as new? Every one of us lives in a place where every day we see exactly the same things all day, every day. You know, we have our little patterns that we go through and such, and we see the same things. How can we see that new? How can we make it new? What can we do to change something a little bit and make it new? Maybe we have a pattern where we make the bed every single morning. Maybe one day we can make it a little bit differently, or change the furniture around, or whatever we can do to make it new, and continue to find that child sense in life, in everything we do. Each time we have a new client, we have something new. And each one of them, as each of us knows, is different. And so we have to figure out what's going to work best for them. That's something that's new. We're constantly creating, like Heidi was saying, we're constantly creating. Then we always need to be creating. That's what humans do. And if we stop creating, we're going to go back into that boredom. So what we need to do is continue to create whatever it is that fills us up and makes us feel whole, part of the whole, and makes us feel oneness.
Love that. Embrace the new. Yes. Julie, how do we reawaken the wonder of life? What are your thoughts?
You know, for me, reawakening the wonder of life, this may seem silly. Maybe some of you listening do this as well, but I love that movement in my body. Yoga has been one thing that I have added into my routine in the last few years, but dancing, I play a song on repeat over and over, and I just move, and I've been doing that since I was little. I love to just feel the movement, the beat, the rhythm. Sometimes it's the words that really connect me, and depending on the song, I think, what were they thinking? What was the inspiration? And sometimes it can be something really silly, or, you know, not necessarily inspirational, but it's really fun to just connect, because to me, music, artistry, all of these things are part of somebody else's passion that they took the courage to put out into the world to somebody else, and they're sharing a part of themselves. So music has always been a way for me to reconnect and this wonder of life. And again, sometimes visiting a museum or looking at some beautiful photography or art, that's always been a way for me to reconnect as well. I've done a lot of hiking. I've been out in nature, but being a city girl, that's not my first go-to.
Fair.
But when I am, and the ocean also for me is that place where I do go, and I do find that solitude that is healing in so many different ways too.
Yeah. Amazing. I love it. It's opening up too, right? Just opening up to what's available, what's out there, opening our eyes, opening our senses to have a sensory experience, to experience pleasure and joy and wonder. I remember when I was coming out of a live-in caregiver position, right, during the lockdown time. So it was very, very intense time. And the person I was serving had, multiple needs that needed tending to too. And I was feeling pretty burnt out, to be honest, coming out of that. And I wasn't feeling creative. I wasn't feeling inspired. I wasn't feeling anything because I was just so burnt out. Literally, there was no fire. There was no spark. And what I found was once I started giving myself space and just walking out and just feeling the air and just being outside, I started to notice things again, little whimsical garden statues or the way the flowers would bloom, or it still fascinates me that a flower can turn into a fruit or a vegetable. I don't know how that happens. I know there's a science behind it, but there's alchemy, there's magic, there's mystery. And I love tapping into that. And so I called it my daily delights. And I started journaling, what brought me that delight, that little spark again. And then as I did that, it was like lighting the fire again, it helped me reawaken to the wonder of life. Heidi, what's it for you? What helps you to reawaken the wonder of life?
Well, again, I want to ditto. And I want to say many times when we're not awake to the wonder of life, it's because I always say it's like our emotions have turned gray. So if you're in that deeper, darker kind of place, feeling any emotion, even anger, the sort of the acronym for emotion is energy in motion. So when we're depressed or bored or things like that, it's almost like we've stopped the motion. So start, if you can, I love to do physical things. Physical stuff will get me out right away, like the dancing and doing that kind of thing. So just start and start feeling, even if the first emotions you start feeling seem to be the quote unquote negative emotions. There really are no negative emotions. It's how we interpret them. And if we get stuck in them, again, if we make sadness a habit, if we make grief a habit, if we make anger a habit. But it's very interesting chemically. There's two things I want to do. The science behind this. Chemically, an emotion only lasts in the body for 14 seconds. It's the 7 seconds of it coming up, and it's the 2 seconds of the body clearing it out. So anytime we feel something more than 14 seconds, it's because we choose to. And that one really made me mad because now I can't have, 3-day pity parties anymore. The other thing is our body really is designed for joy. When we are in joy and creating oxytocin and the neurotransmitters of happiness and the chemicals and hormones of happiness, our body heals and becomes strong. When we're sad, when we're bored, when we go into stress, when we go into those other things, we're creating cortisols and other chemicals that actually tear down our body. So we are really designed for joy. And when we understand that the chemicals in our body love that, that's the thing. Start getting in some kind of motion. Move your energy, even if your energy goes from gray to then sad, depressed, angry, or not depressed, but into anger, and then start moving up the scale of those emotions until you start feeling happiness. And then you start making happiness and things a habit. And the biggest thing for me is movement. When we move, if you force yourself to smile for 30 seconds, even if you don't feel like smiling, your body starts to create oxytocin. This structure in here, this smiling, it stimulates certain cranial nerves, which stimulates our body, and we start making oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormone. We all want it.
Yes,
So,
please.
yes, please. So, every once in a while I'm angry and my partner will go, "You're smiling because you're trying to create oxytocin." And I'm going, because I really don't want to be mad at you. You're a really kind, lovely, wonderful man, and I don't want to be mad and I don't want to say ugly things. So I'm just going to smile and look stupid.
That's such great advice. Cultivating a happiness habit. Thank you, Heidi. And Nicole, what do you have to add about reawakening the wonder of life?
Well, I guess I so relate to all that. And I was thinking about the Wizard of Oz imagery, right? When she goes out from, like, that's how I feel it. When I feel bored or overwhelmed, my emotions are dulled. Like, it's not really me and my colorful self, right? And I remember that moment when she goes from that gray to the Technicolor. And that was sort of my inspiration for everything, right? So if I don't feel like that, then I know there's something I need to do to work on. And I can tell you that there's times I went back to that feeling, I think I felt like that often growing up. I had a mom that was a struggling single mom and being very empathic. I didn't realize I was probably absorbing a lot of her depression and anxiety and feeling helpless, right? And I think it's interesting what you said about even a bad emotion can be a habit that is comforting in a way, right? Like even depression, if that was my go-to to feel better back then, it might be tempting to go back there because it makes me feel like that kid again, right? But what I've come to recognize is, it doesn't feel as good anymore. Once you've done some work on yourself, you start to feel like, oh, I can tell I'm going into a not good place here. And I really felt like that when I lost my mom, which was, I had moved home to California. I basically got one good year with her. I thought, oh, I'm going to, settle down, have my mom around, and she passed away unexpectedly. And so I went into a really dark place at that time because I was also in that job that I felt that tension of boredom of like, this is not the real me. And, I felt like I lost touch with myself. And I think a lot of times that's where all of that comes in, is when we're disconnected from our true self, disconnected from our purpose, disconnected from other people, right? And that's when I learned about law of attraction and all these other kind of like non-traditional healing techniques. And what really got me out of it was I was like, this isn't me. Like, I'm the girl that went to New York with no plan and I made it happen, right? And I trusted the universe and like things were magical. And like, how do I get back to that? But it seemed like such a huge chasm. And the only thing I could think of at that time that would make me feel that childlike sense of wonder was to go travel somewhere that I hadn't been. And I think it was because that moving to New York was such a departure from everything I'd known that it was like, I guess my answer is like, we have to shake it up when you get to that point. You have to like throw yourself into something unknown. You have to put yourself out there. So I went to Spain and Portugal. My mother was part Portuguese, and I thought I'm kind of connecting to her spirit at least. And I didn't realize it, but I was reconnecting to myself. And I was reconnecting to the world because I was allowing myself to be open to who am I going to meet? Like, what adventures around this corner? Maybe I don't have to have structure to every day, and I don't have to have a plan, and I could just see what kind of amazing moments happen. And one of my favorite stories about that is that I put on my vision board a place in Portugal like a year before, never thinking I would get to go there. But I got a good tax return back. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like, I speak a little Spanish. Maybe I can get by. And what's really crazy is, well, they always say all who wander are not lost. And I was just wandering around the first day I was there. And I looked down and I saw this black and white wavy tile that I was standing on and this fountain in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, I was standing in the place I had put on my vision board a year before.
Wow.
And it wasn't like I picked it and then was like, let me plan to go there. It was like total magic. And it really came back to me that like, we're never stuck. Like those are just signs. Like if we're bored, I mean, now I know that, like the business part of my job is not as fun to me as the creative part and connecting with people. And I might feel that resistance, and it doesn't mean it's not what I'm supposed to do. And it doesn't mean I'm off my path. And so now when I feel that way, like the other day, I was kind of like, work and this and that. And I started feeling that again. And I did the mini version of that, which was, I was like, you know what? Manhattan is my backyard. Like I'm so lucky that there's magical experiences all around me if I really want there to be. So I just went to the city. and went to a neighborhood I don't usually go and just walked around, and, you know, that idea of being present and like just seeing what was going on. I guess that's what works for me, like more than meditation does, or, you know, yeah, getting into my body does. I've been trying to take different kinds of classes now because I used to teach dance and I burned out from it and kind of lost my love for doing it. And now I'm kind of reconnecting to that because I'm realizing I can do it as a choice. Like I can do it without an outcome attached. I think that's the childlike part to me, is like, I want to do it because I'm inspired and because I just feel like it, not because I have to. So I think as long as I keep that going somewhere in my life, you know, now I'm discovering classes I never would have thought I liked, or like rediscovering, like I went to Zumba the other day, I used to teach it and I thought I never want to do that again. It reminds me of work, but getting to go be a student in it. I think that's what it comes down to. It's like, we kind of have to be a student of life, right? Like when you're a kid, everything's new and everything's a learning experience. There's not as much judgment of ourselves, you know, and when you can go out with that energy, it's like, then you open yourself to magic. And like you said, noticing things, like when you're in that grayed out state, you don't notice all that magic around you, like you said. And I catch myself doing that, going through the motions and whatever. And you know, the creative things help me. Singing has always been one that comes back to me, even when I didn't feel like doing it. And I know that it makes me present, right? It makes me notice things. And so I think for me, that's the answer, is that you always have to put yourself in new places, new energy, new possibilities for that childlike wonder, for me to stay alive.
I love this. There's so many amazing ideas and juicy tidbits and what really works, because it's worked for all of us, you know? And so I know that this would be very inspiring for people, and also to just give ourselves time to dream, you know, to dream again, and to have the courage to dream a new dream. You know, sometimes we become disillusioned when a dream that we thought we had, you know, didn't quite work out the way we wanted to. But then we can revisit that, like with your dancing, Nicole, to bring a new energy to it, you know, a new intention, a new sense of purpose, that we vibrated a different frequency and experienced life differently as a result of that. So just giving ourselves time to dream again. And as we come to a close, I know that we're all doing a little bit of our dream work now, because we've made a lot of conscious choices along the way that's led to that. Of course, continues to evolve. So I'd love to hear, just do a quick go around of what your dream work is right now, what you're doing, what you're offering. We're going to have everybody's contact information available in the comments. I know that Sophia is working on that. And then we're going to hear about the dream of sacredyou.love as well, and how you can join in that community and feel a part of, because that too reawakens the wonder of life. So Heidi, what is your dream work? What do you do and what do you offer people?
My dream work is working with women particularly. I also do work with men, but particularly young women in their late 20s and 30s who are discovering lives that may have had trauma, pretty severe trauma, and they're just not quite their best friend yet, and they have behaviors that are showing up that really don't serve them as they try to go forward. And I love working with them, creating the new life, finding the root cause pretty quickly of all that in a fairly short, quick period of time, getting rid of it, and then they become their own best friends. I just recently had a young lady, when I finished working with her, and she's like, when we started talking, I didn't believe what you said, that I could actually be my own best friend and not react so strongly. And she goes, and I'm doing it. It's amazing. So that's what lights me up. And my website is HeidiHenyon.com. I am the only Heidi Henyon that ever shows up on the internet. So that's pretty cool, I think. And I have two things up there, a free book. If you want to download the electronic version, I've written 3 books and been part of 2 others. So I have 5 books. You're welcome to download a book, and also just have a chat, see what we can do in 30 to 60 minutes and see how I can help you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heidi. Lei, the mic is yours.
Okay. I work with mostly, well, my target people are younger adults who are now facing all of the changes that are coming in the world and may be overwhelmed with all of these changes, or may not quite have the backing. Maybe they didn't get raised in a family that was very accepting of all of these changes, and they may be having some difficulty getting to living their life because of this. And those are the people that I like to work with most and help them to find where they're going, what's their dream, how can they be in this world. It's more for me passing on what I have learned to the younger generations. And my website is handletheshift.com. And I have the book, like I said, I have written 5 or 6 books. You can find them all on Amazon. And I would love to work with anyone who feels like I would be a good match for them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lei. And I love to work with people that feel something is waking up inside of them. And so I offer a 30-minute inner light activation session. So there's going to be a link for that and a lot of different download services, on-demand classes available at lightingthepath.ca. Julie, what are you offering? What's your dream work?
My dream work is to work with a woman that has a dream and has been really allowing the shoulds of life get in the way of building the brand, the business, something that really lights them up, living in their purpose. They're not sure how to create that consistent action. Maybe they end the day and they feel beating themselves up because they didn't accomplish anything that they wanted to. And they're really stressed about creating the income that they wish, maybe for that dream vacation or to contribute to household. And then they beat themselves up again and they go through this like vortex of insecurity and really judging themselves. So that's the person that I want to work with, because I want to remind them of the beauty that there is when they're actually stepping into what they're meant to be doing without having the overwhelm and feeling confident about what they're able to do. So if you are looking to work with me, you can do so. I'm actually, I do offer a free call that you can jump in. And if I'm not the right fit, I have an extensive network of individuals that I love collaborating with, and I find the right fit for you, specifically because if there's that dream in your heart, there's someone out there that needs that, what you have to offer. And don't let you get in the way of making a difference in the life of somebody else. So I want to facilitate that for others. I also host masterminds. Many of my masterminds are individuals who either have a podcast or a part of my radio network. I have a radio show, and some of these individuals get to come and be surrounded by a community, just like we are here with Sacred You, other individuals, because entrepreneurship can be lonely. So that's part of what you can find. If you're looking to start a podcast as well, maybe this was part of your dream, hit me up. We have a production company in-house. So you can find me at goconfidentlycoaching.com, or if you want to learn tiny habits, that's also where you can find the information. So Go Confidently Coaching.
Thank you so much, Julie. And Nicole, what's your dream work? What do you offer?
So I think I've always had a thing for, going for what you really want to do and not letting anyone, including yourself, talk you out of it. Right. And I think, I work with women of all ages. I have clients that are in their 20s up to, almost retirement age. And sometimes they're in transitions in their life, right? Like maybe they just got through a difficult period, or maybe they've just been thinking about one thing they want to do for a while, or want help starting a business. I've also been a copywriter and done marketing, so I can also help with that. And what I did was I looked at, what do I really like to do? My background was in body and then mental health. I worked in mental health with the homeless for years, and then soul with, tarot readings and being a spiritual guide. And I realized they all really are doing the same thing. So I made a 3-month program. It's called Lion and Attract, 3 months to living your truth and fulfilling your potential. Basically, just the first month is about, let's identify your mind, body, and soul blocks, and however you're getting in your own way, and like, what is your body and mind and soul trying to tell you? And then I help people connect to their intuition and tell the difference between their mind, the fears in their mind, and what their intuition's telling them, and teach them to trust and follow their intuition no matter what, because that's what helped me on my path. And then we create a soul aligned plan together. In the 3rd month, I help them follow through on whatever that is. So for some people, it's a huge change. Like I want to go from being a teacher to working with plants, or I want to start a business based on my passion that I've always thought about, but I was just too intimidated to get started. Or some of them just want to feel better every day, right? Like maybe they're established in their career, but they're stressed out all the time and their body is killing them. And they just want to know how they can have control over their thoughts and emotions, like we talked about. So I think all of them are equally valuable. And I love to see when my clients come back and I could tell they're excited about what they're doing next. And they're also telling me, but I have less stress and I'm able to handle this. And, you know, I recognize when my body was in this position and that was actually my resistance to something. That's what makes me feel good, because it's a combination of all the things I've been through, you know, and I felt myself and the tools that I learned that are mostly free and online. So that's on my website, and I do the free calls about that. They can ask me any questions about me or the program, or even just get, you know, if they have one thing they want to work on, I'm happy to work on that in the call, like one little mindset thing that they don't know how to move past or whatever. And then I do have a free Facebook group. It's private, but anyone can join it. I would love to have you guys in there. I just collect all the cool spiritual people I meet there that are open and working on their own personal growth so that we can support each other. And I do free weekly tarot readings in there every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I'll pull a card for people that show up in the chat, just, you know, what they need to know on their journey that day. And then now I'm doing free monthly self-care workshops, and someone from the group always leads it, which is so cool. So it's this really neat energy exchange just to expose people that maybe different methods that they wouldn't have known. Like next month it's yin yoga, which was what really helped me to balance all that doer energy. So I want to make sure people know about this. It's so cool, you know? So they can join that. That's if you go on Facebook, it's just facebook.com/group/follow your soul path, or you can just type in follow your soul path. And that's my website, followyoursoulpath.com. And you can do any of that there. And there's also a free soul purpose guide. So it's a pretty like lengthy journal, but it's really fun to fill out, I think. And if you're just like, I have no idea where to start with following my purpose or like what I want my life to look like, that's a good place to just ask your soul answers. So yeah, so I'm open to talking to anyone. Same thing. If I don't think I'm a good fit, I'm, you know, happy to refer you to someone that is. And I think that I just love supporting other women doing amazing work like you guys too. So I'm always happy to connect, and you guys keep me inspired and my vibe high. And I think it's amazing all the work everyone's doing.
Awesome. It's such a large bundle of goodies here, everyone. So it's quite the takeaway, my goodness. And so take advantage of that. Yeah, really take it up, and it will reawaken your wonder of life. So Sophia, are you with us still? There she is.
Yay, I am.
Yay.
I am here, and I'm so glad that I'm here, because I have been listening to everyone's tips and loving it. The reawakening wonder of life from resetting. I've been doing lots of resetting.
Oh, good.
Lots of resetting, lots of dancing and moving. Can't get out in nature, but I'm sitting here looking at nature. I'm going, oh, that sun is calling me. So the winter sun, I will be out in the winter sun very soon. So thank you. I've been really loving this conversation. So I just want to thank you, first of all, Jennifer, for doing an excellent thing of facilitating it. Excuse me. And thank you, Heidi and Lei and Julie and Nicole, for joining us. I have been putting all your links in, and we've had people watching, and thank you everyone for watching. Do click on the links below. These beautiful women have taken an hour plus out of their day to share their wisdom about reawakening to the wonders of life. Love it. And also click on the links below to find out more about Sacred You. Obviously, you can join us just for $1 Australian. Try everything out for 2 weeks, and then after that, it's only $15 Australian a month, including part of Heidi's tribe. Heidi, do you just want to tell us quickly about your tribe?
Sure, thanks. I have a tribe called Becoming Your Own Best Friend, because as everybody can hear, that is my bandwagon. And so we get together, we learn tools and techniques that can help us make friends with ourselves, become aware of behaviors that maybe take us away from being true to ourselves and all of that sort of thing. So, and it's just a lovely group of women and a good discussion. We've been on hold for a few weeks while I travel, and I'll be back in August, and we'll be back online.
Thank you. And obviously everyone can click on the links below to find out more about that. And for what's coming up in very soon, or in 2 days' time, we have, I do believe it is, let me just very quickly, the language of energy. That's just in 2 days' time. So do come back for that one. And again, thank you. Seriously, really wonderfully. Thank you for an excellent conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.